Hey there everybody, AJ back for the Mighty Gluestick channel, your source for easily listening Dungeons & Dragons. Today, I want to talk about drakes. Drakes are one of those categories of monsters in Dungeons & Dragons that has taken a lot of twists and turns throughout the years. So what I'm left with is a mixed bag of goodies, which I can pick and choose from. But what I want to give to you from all these different options is drakes that both make sense in the Dungeons & Dragons lore and to the setting, which fill the right niches in your ecologies and are the best use in your stories. It helps if they are something the players can really get interested in as well. So let's start by saying that there are many varieties of Drake. They are best described as not being true dragons, but entirely draconic. They are the lesserkin, the animal forms. Some of them are very different from true dragons, such as the Alehouse Drake. Others could be mistaken for young dragons, such as some of the graded riding drakes. Almost all of them are less intelligent than true dragons. Most are of a predatory animal intelligence. There are exceptions, such as the Portal Drake. This is a small drake the size of a house cat with wings grey in hue, impish in general appearance, loves to learn magic. Natural habitat is the Underdark, scours ruins for lost magic lore, likes to lead prey towards greater danger, such as purple dragon lairs, otherwise mostly just a damn nuisance. The greater drakes, which I'll be talking about, are being referenced directly from Dragon Magazine number 260, one of the best issues of all time. In fact, there's a couple of articles from different Dragon magazines which are really good. The themed dragon, it was one of those focused on a theme that this one being dragons and drakes, and it was just packed with information and useful material, including spells specifically created to take down dragons, perhaps a subject for another video. In 5th edition D&D adventure The Horde of the Dragon Queen, we have the listing for the Ambush Drake, and this is pretty much the same beastie we see in 4th edition D&D, so I'll be talking about those drakes as well as drakes found in the Tome of Beasts, and just naming a long list of possible drakes you might want to know, just assigning stats and abilities according to what challenge rating you need. If that seems daunting, check out my video on how to handle challenge rating like a boss, and you'll be whipping up drakes in no time. So, down to the specifics. How do drakes fit into the D&D world? What is the difference between a drake and a greater drake? Where do they come from? What do dragons and humanoids think about them? First of all, they are perfectly normal. Drakes are part of the draconic ecosystem. They have been around for as long as dragons have, in some cases even longer. The dragons, particularly the metallic dragons, commonly have drakes around them. They breed them and regard them like we would a cat, dog, or other pet and companion animal. The drakes, again, like cats and dogs, are drawn to true dragons, as they tend not to kill the drakes as often as they kill other creatures in their territory, leaving the smaller game for the drakes to hunt and eat. And or large kills that the drakes can pick clean. I'm quite sure that dinosaurs probably had very similar relationships. Even large fish will tolerate small fish cleaning them of parasites. It's a convenience, a beneficial symbiosis. Dragons are also bred drakes that were more suitable to humanoid needs, gifting them to friends and loyal servants, and in some cases slave races, such as the elves. So the most common drakes in civilized humanoid lands are all descended from this common set of breeds. This includes guard drakes, ambush drakes, crested drakes, leaping drakes, hissing drakes, horned drakes, hunting drakes, and the large draft drake. I don't really list the large draft drake. I just assume that there's some sort of large pack animal drake that you can use in your game, because that would be cool. They don't really need combat stats. They're large sort of docile animals. The tieflings have long been expert handlers and breeders of drakes, and particularly in the 4th edition world of Narath, the Turathi bred the fiendishly infused fell drakes, the crested fell drake, tri-horned fell drake, hissing fell drake, and leaping fell drake. These are some of the meanest creatures that is possible for any humanoid to own without being on the menu themselves. But I sure as hell wouldn't want to own one of them. It's said that the tri-horned fell drake won't back down even from a red dragon, and has here's the thing you have to keep in mind. Drakes are not egomaniacs like dragons. They are typically pack animals. They work in packs. They have pack behavior, pack social hierarchy, pack social signals, and pack tactics. Individual drakes may be a little more fearsome than your average cat or dog, but working together they are a serious threat. African hunting dogs are not the most fearsome beasts, and yet they are the most efficient killers, simply due to the way they hunt as a group. Humans are the most dominant species on the planet for our pack hunting ability and our adaptation to any environment we encounter. So why, if they are so amazing, don't drakes take over the fantasy world and rule out any other form of predator? Good question. I hear this one a lot. They have draconic traits, such as the ability to survive on the smell of a blood-soaked rag, and some tiny aspect of elemental spark inside them that supplements their organic metabolism. That's the key. So they may not need to hunt as constantly as other predators and remain active more than any. Say, a pride of lions. They need to rest quite a lot of time during the day. So the drakes may travel around a much wider territory, thus leaving room for the ecological niche of the lion, the crocodile, the hawk, and so on. Drakes thus are not the most demanding predatory animal to keep as a pet, probably eat no more than a dog would, and are quite capable of catching small game for themselves. A few mice, a fat rat, a rabbit, a chicken will do a drake for a moderate size for the whole day. And they can probably eat a wider variety of material than a dog could, which is saying something. I have seen dogs chow down on rubber bands and old styrofoam meat trays. They'll probably regret it later. I would assume that there are all sorts of drakes that are just present in the environment that don't get a lot of attention or mention, due to them being less useful. They're like the rats and mice of the volcanic plateaus, the songbirds of dire swamps and deep ruins. They probably plod around in fungus groves deep in the Underdark. They'd be raised like sheep by the drow. They used to pull carts by troglodytes and kobolds. They hunt alongside lizardfolk and swarm around dragon turtles feeding on parasites. Feel free to invent them on the fly. Dust them into the scene like dragon spice to enrich the narrative and remind the players at all times that this is not Earth. This is an alien world. When your player ranger asks what they just caught hunting for game in the party's downtime, tell them they took down a nice adult crested drake, and yes, it does taste a bit like chicken. Why wouldn't it? What is the scrimshaw made from? Horned drake ivory. What is the betting game the half-orcs are running down on the docks? Hissing drake fights. So far we have a couple of examples of drake for the 5th edition. There is the ambush drake and the guard drake, found in Horde of the Dragon Queen. Ambush drakes have a sneak attack and pack tactics. They are a low CR creature that will attack as a group. They have a green or black dragon appearance to them, resistant to poison, keen senses, dark vision, can move as fast as a human, and just as strong, a bit more nimble, probably quite good climbers, and no doubt they can swim well. They don't like being confronted one-on-one and will back down if alone and a humanoid advances on them and yells at them. They don't turn your back on them, and secure your food sources well if they're in the area, because they will sneak into your camp and eat anything they can get at. Guard drakes are heavy set and tough. They have a more prominent blue scales and are bred to be territorial, loyal, and a bit less pack-oriented than other drakes, except rage drakes. They will display aggression before they attack, particularly slamming their tail into things or slapping the tail on the ground and growling, lowering their prominent nose horn and puffing up to look more fearsome. Guard drakes attack twice each round with a bite and a tail slam. They are pretty tough, lightning resistant, AC 14, average of 52 hit points, plus 5 to hits, 6 or 7 points of damage per bite or tail attack, challenge rating 2. Guard drakes don't back down from what they consider to be their territory, but they can. You can avoid a fight if you back away, avoid eye contact, just like a guard dog. But if they engage with you, they will rip the hell out of you very quickly, and they're much stronger than the average human. PS physical strength is like 16. So, not likely to get pulled or pushed away if they latch on. They are not particularly agile though, so I would say they're not good climbers or swimmers, but pretty handy at digging holes in the ground. I mean, yeah. Drakes in the Tome of Beasts are actually lesser forms of wyverns. They have 2 legs and a pair of wings. Game of Thrones. A breath weapon and dwell in distinct environments. My favourite is the alehouse drake. This torpid, winged iguana-looking creature can exhale an intoxicating gas that can stun a whole room full of people. It can also confuse someone with a touch attack that also enhances the dexterity of the victim for a few rounds. Curious, and something I bet would make an interesting alchemical effect. I should look into that. The ale drake is sized tiny, not as heavy as it looks, but pretty fast flyers with a speed of 80 feet. And I would say with the 40-foot ground speed, they're capable of short dashes on their hind legs, skittering along with lizard speed, heads raised up high, wings and tail keeping them balanced, like the baby alien in the Aliens movie, running across the ground. They are also total barflies, and they, unlike many other drakes, the alehouse drake can speak common, and they are regarded to be terrible gossips. They pick a venue and call it home, and it would behoove the wise innkeep to learn to live with the drakes, as they do add a certain charm to their home, and all they require is scraps and spills. Leaping drakes, particularly leaping fell drakes, are green canopy and cliffside dwellers who are also fond of castle and tower walls that have a lot of ivy and creeping plant growth. They can flatten out and spread out a rudimentary flying membrane that allows them to glide for 30 feet or so. These things have the habit of going right for the neck. They are damn near invisible as they cling to the wall and the foliage, then swish, wham, they latch onto the throat and coil around the victim, choking them with a vice grip, and those needle-sharp fangs is sinking in. If you can get them off, they scamper back and either go for something to climb up and out of reach and flee, or try to go for another attack where they leap right back at the neck, hence the name of them. Luckily, they never grow very big, otherwise they lose the ability to glide around, and that would mean that they don't win any mates in courtship displays. Interestingly, they have a weak venom in their bite that turns the wounds they inflict blue for a few hours, which means that would-be burglars can be identified easily. So it's actually bred for. So, a side note here, we can see that the drake is a pretty loose term. It can apply to a draconic quadruped with no wings or breath weapon. It can apply to a wyvern type with rear legs and wings only. May or may not have a breath weapon, but usually does, and can also apply to lesser dragon forms. In Dragon Magazine number 146, the article Dragons Are Wizards' Best Friends by David E. Cates features the crystal dragon, which is a wyvern that is an offshoot of the fairy dragon, also a type of wyvern. Demon drakes are basically red wyverns. Shadow drakes, however, have arms, so they have a draconic form. I should also mention that this issue sees the first depiction of the grey dragon, along with the cobra dragons, rainbow dragons, drakons, and the mini dragon, another great themed issue of the magazine in its golden age. Anyway, I better talk about the greater drakes, otherwise this video will go on for hours. So we may have... we have these much larger drakes. They also have wings, look quite similar to true dragons, however they don't have the same sort of breath weapon that true dragons do. They all have this throat bladder that expands and fills with a substance that they can expel. The breath weapon is not elemental in nature, and they have some more reptilian traits, such as molting off their scales about 6 times as they go through growth states before they reach full size. They have more reptilian eyes and are of low intelligence. They also have quite different traits and appearance, including a breath weapon of bees and wasps. More on that in a moment. The Vandal Rogue, or Battle Drake, is the warhorse of drakes. They come in a variety of colours. The body is always darker than the wings, and they don't have a breath weapon, but have spines on their wingtips they actually use in close combat, like the grey dragon. With a whistling slash, they can inflict a gruesome wound. Not on targets in front of them, though. They can't flip their wings around forward like that. It's usually targets behind them or to the side, and they don't do it when they're on the wing. They fly with a combination of flapping and gliding, and are immune to fear, even magical fear effects, but are not stupid and will avoid certain death. This flapping and gliding flight is actually bred for and favoured by their riders, particularly spellcasters. In the wild, they are solitary beasts, but are valuable mounts and rarely exist outside of the care of a trusted owner. Those encountered alone may have lost their owner in combat, or been abused to the point they attack their owner and fled, and they'll probably attack anybody who comes near them. Females initiate breeding in the springtime, inflating their throat sac and emitting a high-pitched call that can be heard for miles. Males have a lower-pitched call. Males fight in the air against each other, butting heads and locking up their backwards sweeping horns like mountain goats. The horns make a hollow clacking sound when they are smashed together, and you can hear that from miles away as well. They don't use the horns outside of this ritual combat, though. A clutch of 2 to 5 eggs is laid by the female once every 3 or 4 years, and she raises the young until they're a year old and then abandons them. By that stage, they're hunting and flying by their own, so they're perfectly fine. The Cavanus or Ghost Drake, translated from Elven, Grey Elven, the spirit dragon kin, look very similar to white dragons except for the wedge-shaped head due to a line of horns that runs down either side of its head. They're very similar to a more aquatic drake that I'll mention in a second. They have the ability to see in the ethereal border at will. Their white scales absorb light during the day and glow slightly at night time, which adds to their reputation as being supernatural ghost creatures. Primitive humanoids consider them on sight to be undead. Their bite attack is particularly powerful. They have this lockjaw ability that means they will hit with a bite attack, and if it does more than 4 points of damage on a 1d10, they automatically bump the damage up to 10 and automatically hit the next round with that bite attack, rolling damage as per normal, unless the victim manages to break free in the meantime. So that's an interesting trait that I might apply to other creatures as well, such as like a snapping turtle or something. Again, the Cavanus has no breath weapon, neither does the Greater Riding Drake, but it can become ethereal at will, along with its rider, if the Drake allows it. Weirdly though, it remains invisible to the material plane when it does so. This transition to ethereal or back again takes all of the Drake's actions for the round. They mate for life and prefer to lair in roosts that are not accessible from the ground. They lay a single egg and are particularly aggressive when guarding it. They have some important alchemical uses, and the shell of the egg and the blood is used in various ethereal spell effects, particularly for creating armor that's resistant to ethereal attacks. The Arsalon, or Hive Drake. This is one that spits out wasps, and its body is the typical draconic shape with a thick, lustrous scales and thin backward sweeping horns that give the drake an insectoid appearance, somewhat enhanced by the fact that it has a bony tail stinger like a naga. They are a dusty yellow or light grey colour with darker wings, toning down to black at the ends. The body has even got these faint stripes which look like a bee or a wasp. Interestingly, the tail stinger is only used by the drake if it's in the air, as it swings its tail stinger under the body to deliver a lethal stab with an injection of paralysing poison. If the victim shows signs of being poisoned, the Arsalon will concentrate its attack on its target with a frenzy of bites, claws, and stings. As for the freaky breath weapon, the Arsalon drake secretes a nectar-like substance in its throat sac that attracts stinging insects such as a swarm of wasps or bees, like crazy. They take up residence inside the throat sac where the drake releases. When the drake releases them, it sort of squeezes out the sac. They erupt in a furious swarm, stinging everything they land on in a big cloud, but staying close to the scent of the drake's powerful nectar lure. In the earlier edition of D&D, this swarm rendered spellcasting impossible, but I would say just forces concentration checks due to the amount of painful stings everyone in the cloud suffers. And forget about regular armor being much help against those stings. The bees and wasps get in everywhere. While they are damn difficult to raise and train as mounts, thanks to all the wasps, they are one of the more common great drakes, as they tend to lay clutches of eggs in the springtime, hidden under a pile of twigs under a tree with wasps in it or nearby it, and they abandon the nest entirely, rarely roosting in any one place for more than a night, another reason why they're tricky to breed and keep in captivity. The Wretchen Beast, or Muck Drake, looks like an enormous toad, but it still conforms roughly to the draconic body shape, with 4 webbed feet and stumpy wings, bulging frog eyes and lumpy, irregular, warty greyish-brown scales. They are lazy beasts. They float mostly submerged, just with the eyes above the water, and are excellent swimmers that would prefer to grab a victim and pull them down and drown them, which is how they hunt. They have a breath weapon, a glob of disgusting tar, sticky slime that can engulf a single person, causing immediate nausea and distress unless the victim makes a saving throw. They can refill this glob by brewing more slime that they need from a swampy bog environment or a body of stagnant, reasonably festering water to do so. They wander around watery environments, swamps, bogs, choked streams, everglades, largely ignoring each other except the spring mating season, when they lay a pile of leathery eggs in a clump of rushes or swamp weeds. One place you're likely to find the one is next to an area of quicksand where they can pick off easy prey. They are the preferred aerial mount of bullywugs and lizard folk, but not favoured by the humanoid races since, quite frankly, they're wretched beasts. Finally, The Silith, a fantastic mount for any aquatic race, much favoured by sea elves. Tritons prefer the hippocampi. They're sleek, smooth-scaled. They are drakes with gills and wings that can be used above or below water. Underwater, it tucks its legs and arms close by the body, just using its wings and its serpentine body to really pick up speed. It fills the throat bladder with water and shoots out quite a violent force of water, which they jet out, sufficient to knock a person down. Underwater, though, the Silith opens a couple of valves under its wings and shoots the water out there, like the jet propulsion of a squid. So there are few marine creatures that can match the speed and grace of this drake underwater, and they're bred for speed. Coastal dwelling humanoids of the land also keep these great drakes as mounts and also train them to fish for them. I mean, who wouldn't want a flying dolphin dragon, basically? Alrighty, I could go on for drakes all day, but there's just so many of them, and they're quite fascinating. They really inspire me to flesh out my D&D world. Rage drakes, sea drakes, lion drakes, steam, smoke, magma, scytheclaw, ghost, storm, vulture, ice, bloodseeker, abyssal. The list is lengthy, but that selection should spark the imagination and provide you with the inspiration you need. Just bring your world to life with dragons and their lesser kin. This is, after all, Dungeons and Dragons.